Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. I am Captain Zelnick, and today we're going to be taking a page out of one of the illustrious members of the Nova Open Tournament who gave me this interesting idea. I like to call this idea inverting the pyramid. Now, what do I mean by this rather novel concept? It is the equivalent of, if you're playing a game of 40k, taking nothing but troops. No heavy support, nothing really fancy. You're only restricted in what you can do by the lowest end of the spectrum. So, one of our very interesting, and don't think this isn't competitive, fleets for Nova Open involves, effectively, nothing bigger than a standard cruiser. And I found this to be particularly fascinating because a great deal of the players in the tournament, or really just in general, every time I've played a game of Battlefleet Gothic, people have a tendency of building upwards. They take their minimum, then they go up to the next highest level, and that, of course, gives them the prerequisites for the really, really, really big stuff. Now, some fleets function better under these restrictions, like Space Marines. There really is no such thing as a second tier for Space Marines. They simply have the strike cruiser and that's it. Anything else really constitutes a command vessel, things like the Inquisitorial cruiser or things like the battle barge itself. There's no battle cruiser, there's no true battle cruiser Space Marine ship, and there's no true cruiser Space Marine ship. Just, you know, the Inquisitorial Black Ship, which is technically a battle cruiser, but that's a command ship. You can't take it without taking a very specific commander. So, what I want to do is I want to have a look at, we're going to start, predictably, with the Imperial Navy and go into Chaos, but what we're doing is we are keeping our ships at cruiser and below. No battle cruisers, no grand cruisers, no battleships, no funky rules. We are just playing the meek game. We're playing the small. That means we're allowed to use cruisers, light cruisers, and escorts, and that's it. So let me quickly get to the relevant page. We are, of course, going to start with the Imperial Navy in this particular regard, because it's one of the more complex fleets and has a great deal more room for this than otherwise. Boom. Okay, why aren't you working? There we go. Okay, so we're going to start with the Segmento Obscurus fleet. This is pretty typecast for all Imperial Navy fleets, but this one's actually kind of special because it happens to have a very important cruiser at the cruiser level in it that other fleets do not have, and we're going to go on to those fleets and try to shore up what we possibly can. But I really believe that we can make not just competitive fleets out of this philosophy, the philosophy of the small, because your standard cruisers are no joke. This isn't like 40k where you're not going to be building a winning army out of just guardsmen or just boys or even just taco marines. You need something bigger to deal with what you're going to encounter. But in Battlefleet Gothic, even the small things happen to have the firepower that you may want. And what you may find is that you're actually getting more firepower out of these fleets than you would if you started playing the pyramid. So, as always, when it comes to admirals and command, I always prefer lower point commanders. And my reasoning for this is very clear. You really do need to take advantage of pounding as many ships as you possibly can into this fleet. So we're going to be pulling out our wonderful and illustrious calculator. Let me quickly get it up in order. There we go. So we have our amazing and fantastic calculator. I'm just going to move to the side for now. All right, so we have our 3 fleet admirals. Now, there is something to be said about having a higher fleet admiral because we are taking so many small things. We're going to have some points to wiggle around with, right? But for now, let's play with a standard LD8 commander. Obviously, the LD8 commander needs to go on the most important ship, okay? That's very important. Not necessarily the most expensive, but the most important. And in these these meek fleets, these small, lower on the totem pole fleets, they're probably going to be going on our carriers, because carriers are going to be very important to us. So we're going to not worry about rerolls for now, and we're going to say goodbye to the battleship and the battlecruiser, and we're going to look at our cruisers and escorts. And this is where things get really, really interesting. I'm going to move this calculator down over here now. We have in the Gothic Sector fleet list a really good selection of ships. We not only have the beautiful combat carrier, the Dictator, but we have one ship that no other fleet has. We have the Dominator. And the Dominator is supremely important to this fleet because it's what's going to give us our killing power, because it is the cheapest Nova cannon in the official game. But also, we of course have access to the Tyrant, which is also a very important ship, because the Tyrants are only access to any range above 30, and that means we're going to be dealing with some Eldar problems if we ever encounter them. A 30-centimeter standard fleet is going to be very difficult to counter. We do have some options, but the Tyrant is a very important ship in this regard. We, of course, also have our Gothic, we have our Lunar, and most importantly of all, we have our Dauntless. The Dauntless is going to save our bacon, because when you are dealing with the higher tier ships, Dauntlesses are really there to help you get those higher tier ships, but now these ships have a whole new importance to them. They are maneuverable, they carry very heavy firepower for very low points. These are actually kind of going to become more of our bread and butter, because what we need to be able to do is bring a lot of ships. And our escorts. Our escorts are going to be truly our hammer. They will be our sword. No jokes aside for the sword class frigate, but they're important because this is where the focus of our firepower is coming from. Remember that it's not just that the sword and the Cobra and the Firestorm have greater firepower than the average cruiser does, point for point and size for size, but they are fast, and that speed is what is going to allow us to get the lethal firepower to the enemy when we need it at the right time. Now, these fleets, these underdog fleets, are going to be high finesse. They will require skill to use. They will require practice, because you're going to be utilizing your Dauntlesses and your standard cruisers and your escorts to their maximum possible effect. Okay? That means you're going to be taking a razor and shaving every point off that you can. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to resolve our necessities. We need carrier capacity. That means we're going to be taking a pair of Dictators minimum. And these Dictators are very important because they're what's protecting us. This is what is protecting our ships from incoming ordnance, because we have to expect that we will be dealing with somebody who's bringing it to the game. Dictators are a great platform because they have their torpedoes and they have their attack craft that all reloads on the same reload special order. We're going to put our commander there. That way, if we need to, we can buy rerolls, and we have a standard leadership. Okay? But now we have to worry about killing the enemy. Now, I would say that in a normal scenario, taking Nova Cannons is somewhat of an option. In this case, I'm going to say no. Nova Cannons are very important because we do not have the lethality of battleships, the lethality of Grand Cruisers, and the lethality of battleships, battle cruisers, Grand Cruisers in this fleet at all. We need something that can hit and hit hard and disable the enemy's ability to destroy us at efficiency, and we need to be able to reach out to range. Suddenly our Nova Cannons are infinitely more important. Okay? Now, the Dominator is the natural and obvious choice. We're going to take 2 of them. Now, why 2? Well, obviously 1 is better than 2, and this is the most efficient way to take a Nova Cannon in the fleet. Because what you're going to find is that if we're going to take more cruisers, we're going to need something for the long game. eventually, well, specifically, we're going to need some things for the brawl part of the game when ships finally come in and fight. Dominators are not poorly armed, but they have very poor range. They need support, and that is going to come in the form of the Gothic, the Lunar, and the Dauntless. Now, what about the Tyrant? What is the purpose of this Tyrant in this particular scenario? The Tyrant is your alternative to the Dominator, okay? They have very similar firepower. The Tyrant has slightly weaker firepower, but it comes with torpedoes. That Nova Cannon upgrade does make it more expensive, but it is more flexible. It allows you to reach further, but you really shouldn't be taking Dominators and Tyrants because you'll start over-focusing on batteries and finding it very hard to defeat your enemy. You won't have that good synergy between lances and batteries. Now, because we have two Dominators, the natural thing to bring alongside it are Gothics. But again, Gothics have that range problem, and we want something a little more punchy. We need something that will cover and that'll support the Dictators and cover the Dominators, because the purpose of this fleet ain't to reach out and fuck someone. It is to move in and make a gradual assault, or to have our enemies distracted by something else. So in this scenario, I'm going to, instead of suggesting Gothics, I'm going to say we're going to take some Dauntlesses. So I'm going to take 2 Lance Dauntlesses. Now, at this point, I'm going to stop on the cruisers. We now have 6 cruisers. We are at 1090. We need escorts, and we need them badly. Now, the question now here becomes, which escort do we take? That's a great question. We could take Firestorms and shore up on Lances. We could take Swords and continue this lovely trend of all batteries all the time, or we could take a bunch of Cobras and really start to cause problems in the ordnance phase. And the answer here is you can take whatever you want, because all 3 of these options are good. Now, the Firestorm is a little more of a finesse ship. Its lances only fire at the front, so the weapons batteries are a little more flexible, but in order to use them, you need to practice. The Sword is the everyman ship. Anybody can use a sword. It's basically be within 30 and, you can shoot them. And you can always keep that abeam to the enemy, and they have 2 turrets, which makes them very hard to kill with ordnance. And then you have your Cobras, which have the benefit of being disposable and lethal. So, when I'm looking at my fleet, what do I have? Well, I don't actually have a lot of torpedoes, so in this scenario, I am going to take at least 6 Cobras. Okay, we're at 270. We have 230 points remaining. Okay, we have a good number of options actually right now. Okay, so let's see. We could take Swords, definitely a good choice. We don't really have. We could take a small number of Firestorms, definitely a choice. Let me do the math in my head, because that's always the hardest thing. So if we take 6 Swords, that should be 210 points. We're at 1480. We're in a good place right now. Okay, we're not necessarily really rocking it in regards to leadership. We could purchase an extra reroll. No, we can't purchase an extra reroll, but we can take some ram spikes on the Dictators for 10 points each. Congratulations, we're at 1490. That is 12 escorts, 6 cruisers, at a very lethal fleet if handled correctly. Now, what are the weaknesses of the fleet? Obviously, dealing with range, right? Now, we have good range coverage from our Dominators, and we have good maneuverability and speed out of the Dauntlesses and your escorts, but you'll need to either close the distance or find a way to get over the enemy's capacity to outrange you, but you outnumber most fleets with this setup. And Imperial Navy ships being more expensive in general, this is still a very good loadout. Now, what's another way that we can handle this? Well, why don't we rebuild a fleet and do it again? Now, do we want to keep our Dictators? Do we want to actually, or do we want to forego them? Do we want to leave the Dictators behind? Now, for this fleet, specifically for the Gothic sector, I'm going to say no. We will leave the Dictator behind in another for another time, but let's for now keep our Dictator core, because we'll still need those carriers with a baseline commander. Now let's forego the Dominator. Instead, we're going to have a little more of a flexible fleet, a little less hyper specialization. So we're going to take a pair of lunars. Now, we still are probably going to want Nova cannons in there, so we'll add 40 points, give both of our lunars Nova cannons. Okay, we're back at 1890. We're sitting at 4 cruisers. We can cruiser this out. We can continue to play the cruiser game, and we very well may. There's no reason not to, due to a demonstration of how we could make this a very lethal fleet without going into even escorts. Okay, so what do we have? We have batteries. We have a little bit of lance. We've got a little bit. We have decent carrier capacity. Why don't we, in this scenario, actually take a pair of tyrants? Oops. So, 185 plus 185. I probably did that horribly wrong. Let me make sure. Oh yeah, I screwed this up. Hold on. Let's start over. Oops. Here. 440 plus 50 plus 80 plus 40 plus 185 plus 185. Okay, that's 2 tyrants. Now, tyrants, I believe the upgrade, we can quickly go to the actual ship card and make sure. I believe that upgrade is 15 points per ship, and the Nova Cannon, as always, is 20 points, because we will need Nova Cannons. Lunar... Yeah, we went too far. Dominator and Dictator and Overlord. Where's the Tyrant? I know you're under this. Dictator, Dominator, Tyrant. Here we go. Okay, so it's 10 points per. So let's go back to the magical calculator. We always want to take this long range option. 20 points. Now, do we take Nova Cannons? We're at 1280. Okay, that'll be 40 additional points. That'll leave us 180 points to remain. So actually, why don't we do that? 40 points. That'll give us 2 Nova Cannons. We're at 180 points. For 1 Gothic, boom, there we go. So that'll give us 2 Dictators, 2 Lunars, 2 Tyrants, and a Gothic with 2 Nova Cannons. That is a very, very powerful, very durable, and solid fleet. We've got good torpedoes. We've got good... we have great Nova Cannon coverage. We've got a lot of things that we can do to really knock an enemy out, and we haven't once gone up to battle cruiser level. All right, now let's move on from the Gothic sector. We're going to go into Segmentum Solar, and this kind of applies to the Bastion fleets as well, because you have access to the Endeavors and Endurances. Where are we? Oh yeah, this is Baka. Nobody plays Baka. Meh! You can always apply what we're doing here to Baka as well, but I want to go into Chaos in this video, just to give you guys another fun example of fun things you can do. I believe I am here. Segmentum Solar. Okay, Armageddon. All right, let's look at what our options are. We're going to cheerfully slide away from the battle cruisers. Now, this is kind of a funny situation, because this fleet is designed to give you battle cruisers, and we are going, no, we do not want your battle cruisers, sir. Shun, we don't have no need for you. Now, this means that we are going to be focusing differently our interests in our ships. Now, what's the difference between the cruiser loadout? We have, of course, the core 4, the Dictator, Tyrant, Gothic, and Lunar. We do not have access to the Dominator. We do not have cheap Nova Cannons. But we do have the Space Marine Strike Cruiser, and we are going to abuse the hell out of that. We also have the Endeavor, the Endurance, and the Defiant. Okay? Now, the Endeavor and the Endurance and the Defiant are fantastic ships. We are going to go and quickly double-check the requirements of those ships. It always has those asked. Here we go. No more of 2 of the vessels may be taken for every 500 points. So, we are playing a 1,500 point battle as always. That means we can have as many as 6. So, really, that restriction doesn't mean dick. Anyway, we will now play some fun little games with this, okay? Go away, battle cruisers. We don't need you. Well, we do need you, but not in this scenario. Okay. We have now something we didn't have before. We have 2 different carriers, okay? Now, taking 2 Defiants is a risky choice instead of taking 1 Dictator. The Defiant is not as good or as efficient a carrier as the Dictator. What is the Defiant meant to be? It is meant to be a support carrier for the Dictator. It is the source of 2 lances and 2 launch capacity and 6 ablative hull points for a Dictator. So we're not going to replace our Dictator, we're going to upgrade our Dictators. Okay? So we're going to start with 440 plus, of course, 50 for the baseline commander. And we are going to take 2 Defiance. We now have launch capacity 12. We have a fantastic launch capacity, and our carriers are tough as nails. Okay? Now we have to focus on killing things. Now we can play an entire light cruiser fleet. We can bring Endeavors and Endurances and Defiance. This is actually a very effective fleet. It is very squishy. It is actually a fleet that if you do not know how to use, it's going to die horribly, but it can work. But for this scenario, we have our carriers, we're at 730, we need ships to go and meet the enemy. We're going to do that in this particular scenario with a pair of lunars, okay, because we need that good dual lunar core for a fleet. And we're sitting at 1090. Now we have also down in our escort area, we happen to have a lot of escort options. And guess what? We have access to the Space Marine escorts. I cannot express to you how good these escorts are. We are going to take 6, that's right, 6 Novas at 300 points. Okay, that leaves us at 110. Guess what we can do? Boom, an additional Endeavor. What a beautiful fleet. We have the pure lethality of the Nova-class frigate, just demonstrating its absolute inability to die. We have a carrier core of incredible strength. Set up for a squadron. Cruiser squadrons can get as large as 4. We can have them separate, 2 independent, with launch capacity 6 and launch capacity 6. We have a pair of lunars, which are always efficient and effective. We have a Endeavor to chill out along with us. Hell, we can take an Endurance if we want to increase our lance capacity. It's your choice at the same cost. This is a fantastic fleet. I highly recommend it. Actually, it's a fun fleet. I'd love to play it. All right, now we're going to play this from an entirely different perspective. We are now playing with Space Marines. Okay, now let me just double check really quickly. I want to make absolutely sure that I'm doing this right. Okay, so just making sure that that was legal. It is. But if you want the Master of the Fleet for the 50 points, you have to bring the Battle Barge. Just recognize that none of your rerolls, if you have any, work for the Space Marine stuff. You can't share, I believe. Maybe not. This one Imperial ship we can roll. No, you can use the share command. No, you can't use your rerolls. I've never personally mix and match, but I guess today we're going to start. Okay, we are not going to take a Master of the Fleet because we don't want a Battle Barge. They are way too expensive for what we need, but we can take a bunch of Space Marine strike cruisers and play a little mix and match. So what we're going to do, instead of taking Dictators and Endeavors, we're going to take some Space Marine strike cruisers. Now, the upgraded Space Marine strike cruiser total is 165, and there's no reason to never take that. 2, 3, 4. So that'll give us launch capacity 8, the minimum, and it's all in Thunderhawks. We still have a lot of room to go through, so we should be probably playing if I'm going to have the opportunity to mix and match, I should probably enjoy it. So we're going to take, in this scenario, 2 Gothics. Because 8 Lances with Space Marines. How could that possibly go wrong? And here we are once again at 1020. We have a fleet that is 6 cruisers strong. We should probably take some escorts. And in this particular case, I'm going to take Hunters. Boom! 12 Hunters, 1,500 points. Oh wait, I did forget something. We need a commander, don't we? Let me double check the math on that one. I think I was too enthusiastic because we need a baseline Imperial commander. Yeah, I definitely forgot to bring him. 2, 3, 4, plus 360, plus 240, plus 240, but 50-50. Well, that's tragic. Unless, you know, I just start stripping shields off of the Space Marine ships. Minus. Let's see. Actually, let me quickly see what the point cost is for a shield on a strike cruiser, because I don't remember on the top of my head. I think it's 15 points. Great. Position. Gray Kniggets. Black Kniggets. I'll find them, I promise. Yeah, I'm gonna cheat. Assuming the bookmarks even work. They don't work. Tragic. Stuff. Yeah, here we go. Alright, strike cruiser. Got to get down to it. And we play this game. 15 points each. So we would have to take off 3... No, we'd have to take off all 4 of our shields. That's fine. Minus 60. That's okay. We don't need those shields in this particular scenario. We have a whole bunch of other stuff. And if I have 2 squadrons of hunters, 2 Gothics, and then 6 strike cruisers, I have enough things that my enemy now has to think about instead of focusing solely on my strike cruisers, which in this scenario are going to be focusing more on spewing out Thunderhawk gunships and allowing the Gothics to provide most of the screening cover and be giant distractions. Okay? But this is a really good fleet. You should not underestimate these, you know, low-tier fleets. So why don't we go and have a look at Chaos? Close that down because that's useless. Let's go look at the Chaos list and see what we can do there. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, a Chaos list is going to be vastly more flexible in this regard because Chaos plays a lot more power in the cruiser zone, if that makes any sense. We have way more firepower and we have way more range down in the normal cruiser zone with our devastations, carnages, murders, infernos, slaughters. Okay. Now, what are we missing? What are we losing in this regard? We are losing a lot of our specialization in the larger ships in this regard. We are losing, like, the fire support element of the Acheron. We are losing the force multiplier that is the Hades. We are losing the mediocrity that is the Hecate, and we are losing the fleet carrier replacement element that is the Styx. When it comes to your grand cruisers, you're losing durability. And you're losing, of course, the best ship in the game, the Repulsive. And your battleships you're losing, again, specialization. Your cruisers are already generalists. So playing a all-cruiser fleet for a Chaos fleet, or even moving into, you know, just your cruisers and just your escorts, you have plenty of power. You have range. You have battery strength. You have multiple tactical options moving towards your enemy to defeat them. You just, again, need to practice. You need to understand the limits of the murder, the limits of the slaughter, the ineptitude of the Inferno, even if I have to hate to admit that it's actually a good ship now, which I hate. But we have the Devastation, which is easily the best cruiser class fleet carrier in the game. There's no question the Devastation is better than any other cruiser class fleet carrier, simply because you get so much for so little. The Carnage. You want range, we got range. The Carnage has fantastic battery range. It may be a one-trick pony, but because we're not actually investing in the larger cruisers for longer range, this actually becomes something worthy of taking. You know, when it comes to the Inferno, yeah, we already mentioned the Inferno is painfully, unfortunately good, and it hurts my soul to even say that, but I can't deny its actual effectiveness because all of its firepower is very cleverly placed on the beam side, on the port and starboard side, making it vastly harder to kill than a murder. That's why it's more expensive. The murder, of course, is still perfectly able to set up in teams of 2 or 3 on a forward assault. and still carve up most ships at 60 centimeters. And then we have the murder hobo that is the slaughter, which is good in any scenario. We could just fill this fleet with nothing but slaughters and devastations and have a perfectly valid fleet. But also, let's talk about your escorts. The Iconoclast it's Johnny Iconoclast. It is the most heroic and unquestionably useful. Hold on, oops. Ooh, I don't want to move that. The Johnny Iconoclast is the most useful disposable escort in the game. You can take as many of the damn things as you want. They are dirt cheap, and they are still effective with 3 batteries. Someone's coming in with a incoming ordnance salvo, throw it in and watch as Johnny Iconoclast miraculously survives 40 hits from Tau torpedoes. It's happened. Infidels are probably, when it comes to anything outside of the Xenos options, are the best, probably the best battery escort in the game. Probably, heavily competing with the Hunter. Now I'm gonna just do a quick double check. Hunter, I think I have to actually double check this. I know that I once had this conversation with myself and comparing the Hunter to the Infidel Raider, because they're the same point cost. I think the Hunter still only has 1 battery, I think. I'll double check. Let me double check real quick to do the comparison. So the Infidel has 2.2, 30 centimeter speed. The Hunter, I think, has 1 battery but 35. Let me go back to the Hunter really quick, because this is worth looking at by comparison, because I know how good the freaking Hunter is. Get down to those escorts. Okay, Hunter. Yes, I'm right. So the difference between these ships is the Hunter is faster and has 1 less battery. The Infidel is slower but has 2 batteries and the 2 torpedoes. That's the substantial difference between the two. Now, between the two, I would say the Hunter is better because 30 centimeters is enough. And I am sure that many players out there who have played long enough will know the price you pay for going too fast. So 30 centimeters is just perfect. Now, what about your idolators? Let me get back to the actual fleet list real quick. Here we go. Now, what about your idolators? Now, the idolators have actually a very important place in this particular fleet, since we're specifically not going higher. They are a source of lances, and they are a source of very accurate battery firepower. They are not to be ignored. So, as I said, building a all-cruiser fleet here is astoundingly simple. It's a question of how do you want to mess up your enemy. Do you want to shoot them at range, or do you want to screw them up in close range? Personally, I'm the kind of person that likes a hybrid approach, but the hybrid approach in question is not accessible right now. So I'm actually going to forego using the Slaughter. I'm going to be a good boy and not use the Slaughter, because the Slaughter is my go-to ship for chaos pretty much all the time. We are going to start with our carriers, as always. 190 plus 190. Now, this has us set up for a long-range barrage and excellent ordnance option, but I want to also go down to the Inferno for a reason, because the importance of the Inferno in this particular scenario cannot be ignored. Give me 2 seconds. Because the Devastations have 60 centimeter straight 2 lances and a 30 centimeter straight 6 battery. We want something to stick with them because they're fragile. Let's be honest with ourselves, okay? They are, without question, fragile. All right? If somebody notices the Devastations, they're just going to walk up to them and slap them right in the mouth, and all those 190-point investments that we had are going to go away. Now, why do we bring up the Inferno in this scenario? Very important point. Number 1, it has a very similar broadside profile to the Devastation, okay? It has 45 port starboard lances and port and starboard weapons batteries, just only strength 4, but that's not that important. It is critical to look at that and recognize how similar the profile is to the Devastation. And then we look at the prow weapons battery, 60 centimeter front left right option. This allows the Inferno to support, as much as I hate to admit this, the Devastations with firepower at varying range. these serve as a replacement to the Acheron. Now, the Acheron is a better ship than this, okay? The ability to, sidle up alongside a devastation, combine its lances together, and sling out strength, 4 additional lances out of the formation is undisputably powerful. It is what I like to bring. But the Inferno is 100% an acceptable replacement in this scenario, or if you want to shave off points for something else. It is not as good, but it doesn't need to be. So we're going to take 2 Infernos, much to my chagrin. And we are at 4 cruisers, launch capacity 8, lots of long-range firepower off the broadside. We are doing really well, okay? Now, we have good lances, we have kind of mediocre batteries. What should we be taking next? Now, the question is, where should we get our batteries and how? And I think what we have developed with this fleet is a theme. That theme is range and keeping a beam to the enemy, which is going to be a trickier fight, okay? Because the desire to move in and beat the brakes off your enemy is very strong in a Chaos list. I should know. Ask me how I know. Here, let me quickly get back, because all of these fleets are effectively the same. Okay, so in this scenario, I am going to forgo the murder. Now, this does not to say that the murder could not be effective in this scenario. It absolutely can be. Having something that is a frontal assault ship that is relatively cheap would be a good distraction while your Infernos and your Devastations are getting into position for their broadsides. But today I want to actually play the irritating Chaos player. Let's take a pair of Carnages. Now we're sitting at 1110. That is 6 cruisers, okay? We have your Devs, the Infernos, and the Carnages. We have broadside range. So long as our enemy is not so powerful or fast that they can disrupt our formation, like if we're facing pretty much anybody but Necrons, we are in a really good situation. Even Tyranids are going to freaking hate this. Because, I've got my Hive ship! Get you, strength 32 batteries at ridiculous ranges. Ranges, at as good, if not better than yours. Oh, that's a nice battleship. Take 4 lances at 60 centimeters, plus 12 batteries at 60 centimeters. Yeah, this is going to mess up almost anyone. Necrons may have a better time because they're fast enough to move in and disrupt the formation before it can really get itself going. Though that doesn't mean that it is immune. So, what we need now is something that will cover our fleet as we move into formation. This is a evasive fleet. We are keeping our beam away to facing the enemy. We are not moving in, which means we have to keep in formation, which is going to be hard. So we are going to have escorts. Now we have 400 points to play with. We can Iconoclast max all day, every day. Well, first things first, let's be a smart man and get our commander really quick. We're going to get our bog standard, Chaos Lord. Actually going to do, not likely, we're going to actually take this out of the original because in my opinion it has the best command options. Because we're not bothering with marks right now. You can apply this philosophy to marks if you so desire, but the marked fleets. But I prefer my LD8 option, so we're going to take our LD8 commander. There we go. So we instead have 350 to play with. Okay. Now we have, of course, that does limit us a little. We can't just go oops all Iconoclasts. But what we're going to do, I think, which would be smart, is really invest heavily in Infidels. Infidels are definitely a great option right now because they are, simply put, we need ordnance. We need other ordnance, and we need something that is fast, maneuverable, and can provably be more than one thing at a time. As a torpedo and a battery boat, it is very good at its job, and we have 110 points that remain. We can take, actually what we're going to do, we're going to split the fleet, we're going to split the formation. 80. Okay, we have split this formation. All right, it is now 2 squads of 4, which is more than effective. That's going to be two hefty squads of escorts that will do lots of damage down the line, which is something we should absolutely enjoy, and we'll then take a Mark of Tzeentch for that ever-important reroll. Congratulations, we have a fleet of the small and meek with nothing above a cruiser. And I don't think anyone can look at the fleet that we just made and go, that's not powerful enough. You can play a lot more with Chaos than Imperial Navy in this regard, but even Imperial Navy has a lot of choices. Now, I'm going to make another video. We're going to go into some of the Xenos races. Some of the Xenos races simply do not apply to this. For example, there's no such thing as a fleet of the meek for Necrons, because your meek is the scythe. And the Shroud, you can only take so many of. So you really can't do that. There's no such thing. We can go into the Tau and play a merchant fleet, which I think would be actually really cool. Just a fleet of nothing but merchants. You're going to be really flush with escorts. It's going to be really heavy on the ordnance. And with a bunch of these really cheap and disposable cruisers. That actually sounds like a lot of fun. But there's no sense in doing it for the Eldar, because that's basically just an escort fleet, and there is nothing meek about an Eldar escort fleet, period. They're orc-wise, we're looking at, oh no, kill cruisers. It's the baseline fleet from the Blue Book. Oh no! Kill cruisers and terror ships, just nothing out of the big battleship stuff. That's not hard, so it's not really that much of a challenge, or really that intuitive. Tyranids, it's the same thing. You know, it's called the Vanguard list. It's just a bunch of Vanguard drones. What else? You know, there's nothing in the Demiurge where you can play around with that. The Dark Eldar, okay, oops, all escorts. Not very creative, right? Yeah, so ultimately in this regard, these kind of fleets really kind of exist only really in Chaos. It only really exists in Imperial Navy, and to an extent the Tau, because those are the ones that actually have the fleet diversity to really play that game. But I think, actually, let's do this. Let's go down and have a look at the Tau fleet really quick, all the way down, much to the chagrin of many Marine players, because they don't deserve to have this anyway, because they can't do it. Because they're literally their fleet is a ship and 3 escorts and a battleship. Though I do want to promise to my Space Marine players, there will be a video coming that is, okay, we're going to take a Venerable Battle Barge, let's build a fleet to make it effective. Because a lot of players love their Venerable Battle Barges, like on a very deep level, even if I have told them many times that it's kind of a scam. It's not really meant for you to take, it's supposed to be painful, you're taking severe limitations by doing so, but rest assured, there is a way to take them, and there is a way to make it work, and we're going to make it work on a level that is at least reasonably competitive. I promise. Okay, now we're into the Tau. What are we cutting out? Okay, now this is a little trickier because we have to designate ships that are battle cruiser and above. They don't differentiate here, but we can. Okay? The Protector is a battle cruiser. There's no question about it. The level of firepower for the ship it's a battle cruiser. It doesn't matter that it has 6 hits. What matters is it has a ridiculous amount of firepower and torpedoes and launch capacity and all that. The Hero is, without a question, a battle cruiser. It is vastly over firepowered for a standard cruiser. The argument that it is equal to the Lunar is a bit of a joke. This thing usually beats the shit out of a Lunar in one fight, in one-on-one matches, unless the Lunar can get a beam or a close combat brawl can happen. So we are restricting ourselves to the Emissary and the Merchant. Okay? Now for escorts, merchants have graph hooks, and so can emissaries, but we're probably not going to be using the emissaries for graph hooks. We need that thing for firepower. So we are not restricting ourselves in regards to any of our escorts, because this fleet needs some kind of firepower, and again, we're allowed to take them in this in this general rubric. So, okay, 1,500 points. We require a commander. So we're going to go with the baseline LD commander now, just 50 points. That's very convenient that we have that choice. Let's have a look at the merchant and the emissary. Okay? The reason being we need to know what we're working with, because otherwise we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay, your baseline Kelshan setup is railgun, strength 6, 45, with four that can fire front, out, the right, or left by combining. And it has, obviously, our grav hooks. Now, these are very important. These grav hooks can take anything. These are universal grav hooks. We can take Nikasar Dows with these, which is very important for what we're going to be doing. It's a 4-hit cruiser, okay? The alternative version replaces the grav hooks with ion cannons. Okay, we now know what that has. Now let's go over to the emissary, because that's all we're allowed to take. The emissary is similarly designed, though it is a little more heavily armed. I guess it's further down. Where is it? There it is. Okay, custodian, protector, and there we go. The emissary class envoy. Now we have multiple options for this. We have the grav hook version. This is the off. I like to call this the off-standard version, which is it has launch capacity 2. Remember, only 4-hit cruiser. A decent railgun battery at 8 in the front and 4 out to the side, and it has 2 warden capacity. Remember that these are warden specific, and it can launch 2 Barracudas. The next option, this is the option that is generally considered the stock version, which is the Proud Gravitic Launcher. It has strength 3 torpedo, and it has the gravitic hooks, and it has launch capacity 4. And then we have our combat version, which is railgun batteries 3-3, so it only has up to 6 as opposed to 8 like the others, okay? But it has 2 ion cannons, okay? Now these are, and of course it has the gravitic launcher. This is where we're going to be getting a lot of our firepower from, okay? So we have to be very careful about what we take and how, because our carrier capacity is only here and it's only Barracudas. All right, but the merchants critically let us take any grav hook option we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to rely on our merchants to take our grav hooks. Okay, we're going to need a good amount of merchants, and we're going to need a good amount of emissaries to, we'll need at least a squadron of emissaries to be our carrier options, because if we don't have something to protect these ships, they are going to die. And we need our merchants to take our grav hooks. Okay. Because we have a lot of things that we need to be able to take. It's very important that we have the option. So just to be clear, a Dow is a 45-point choice. I'm going to move this calculator over. So we're going to start. We have our commander at 50 points. A merchant, we're not going to bother upping the hull points. We need these things to be as cheap as possible. So we're going to take 1, 2, 3. These are just to get enough grav hooks to take 6 Nikasar Dows. Nikasar Dows are 45 a pop. That's 90 plus 2, 70. That's 6 Nikasar Dows. Okay? That right there is going to be the core irritant of our enemy for the game. Okay? And we're only at 605. So, why Nikasar Dows? Answer. Important starboard weapons at strength 3 and critically 2 shields per hit. They are almost impossible to kill with normal firepower, and if we support them with the appropriate amount of launch capacity, right, we will be able to keep them alive. Yeah, because really their greatest weakness is our assault boats, so bear that in mind. We need, in that case, some emissaries. 2, 3. Okay, that's 3 emissaries. They're all launch capacity. We have 6 Barracuda launch capacity. They will be in a squadron. They're going to have decent firepower, okay? Because they each have straight 8 weapons battery. But we got a lot of battery boats here. But what we really need to do is not worry about lances. We now need to bring Castellans, okay? We need torpedoes up the yin yang. Now, Defender or Castellan, which do you take? My answer always is take Castellan over Defender if you have the points. 50, hold on, plus 300. That's 6 Castellans. These are going to be responsible for a lot of our firepower, okay? These things are dropping out of strength 12 torpedo every round. They're hopefully have good leadership, but they are very, very effective ships. Now, we have at our disposal about 165 points. We have room for more. What do we fill it with? My answer is we need more emissaries, because that's, again, we don't have graphics right now, okay? Now, what we could do is take 3 more Castellans and have another separate squadron of just more torpedoes. Not a bad choice. We could also take a messenger. So if we take a messenger, 50 points, and then we take 2 more Castellans, we split that formation, right? We have a messenger that's going to sit with our cruisers and improve their weapons battery and turret performance, okay? And then we have 2 more Castellans. We're dividing up the escort squadrons to 2 of 4, right? Let's make sure I'm doing the math right. I may have done a little bit weird math, but I'm doing the math right. Okay, we can now actually keep putting more stuff in here. So, here. Oops. Okay, now we have 2 squadrons of 5 Castellans. Okay? That's a lot of firepower. We're sitting at 1485. We can actually then go in and give some of our merchants that hull point upgrade. No point in not doing so. It's 15 points. Perfect. One of them has 6 hits. 1,500 points. You have 3 merchants. You have 3 emissaries that are providing you the graphics you need, the launch capacity you need, and a mess of Nicassar Dows and Castellan ships. Those will 100% cause a lot of problems for anyone you fight against. Now, it's very fragile. These ships are going to die very easily, but it's still an effective fleet just based upon the things that you're bringing, because your Nicassar Dows are going to become your hammer. All right. Thank you all so much for watching this video, everyone. If you have any other fun ideas like this, please let me know, and I will happily make them. This was a lot of fun to make, and I can't wait to see everybody at Nova Open. Have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.